Greetings YouTube, and welcome to my latest weapons build. I can remember as a kid watching reruns of the original Star Trek series and absolutely falling in love with the Vulcan Lirpa the first time I laid eyes on it. For those that don't know it, the Lirpa, L-I-R-P-A, if I remember correctly, is a two-handed, double-ended weapon, something I would call a Battlestaff, because it's two ends that are dissimilar. So it's not a double sword or a double spear or something. One end is a blunt object, and the other one was a crescent-shaped slashing blade. Kind of like Pit and the Pendulum style. And I loved it. As an adult and somebody who did a lot of weapon sketching, and many of my weapon sketches, while cool looking, are not all that functional, and I didn't learn that until later, thanks mostly to my friend Skull, because I didn't know anything about the edge alignment. I never thought of edge alignment when I did a lot of my sketches. And when they designed the weapons for that episode of Star Trek, they also didn't think about edge alignment. And the problem is that when you have a blade that's designed to be slashing, not just thrusting, but a slashing blade, you have to be able to tell where the heck the blade is without necessarily locking your eyes on the darn blade. Because if you have to look at the end of your weapon, you're dead. So you really need to be able to tell where the heck your weapon is, the angle of your weapon, without having to look at it. It needs to become instinctive. It needs to become muscle memory. The blunt end of that weapon was kind of shaped like the re-entry vehicle from the Apollo project. So it was a cone shape with a rounded butt. I think that may have been inspired by that, who knows. But it was large, and it had to have been hollow, because even if it had been like an aluminum-like substance, it would have been too heavy for anyone to swing it at the speeds that they were shown swinging it at in the episode. But with a large object, you reduce impact damage. Now, in this particular case, because it was supposed to be used in ritual combat, maybe they wanted to reduce it, but the other end of the weapon was designed for cutting people open, so I question that. But I love the idea of double weapons, and in the past tense, I have stopped sketching, essentially. I've sketched many of them over the years, okay? So, I love the idea, but I want to have something that makes a little bit more sense to me. So the Lirpa had two ends, both of which were designed to be swung. One was a blunt weight, and the other was a crescent-shaped blade. But both they're emulating a very similar action. You're making large, sweeping motions with it. Now, you can thrust with a crescent blade edge. There's an old saying in sword fighting, you thrust with the edge, slash with the tip. Basically meaning you do whatever you have to do to survive. So if you're in a position where your edge is the only thing facing your enemy and you can make a thrust with that and you have a chance of hitting skin, do it. Because if you every time you make your opponent bleed, you're increasing the chances that you win and they die. But I don't want to make something that's an identical to the Lirpa. I want to make a Battlestaff, no questions, but I want to have one that gives the user more options. So I want one that has a blunt weapon on one end and then has a thrusting weapon on the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a blunt weight, this one right here. This is salvage. This was a coupler that actually helped turn something at one time, and it wore out. The inside of that is all chewed up. It's no longer useful, and the outside was kind of beat up. And the only thing I've done so far is I've ground this a little bit flatter than it was, so that when I put a bolt and a washer and such through here, it should seat a little bit better than it would otherwise. This cost me nothing. I bought a bolt. These right here cost me nothing because they came with this. This is a piece of tubing from a store clothing rack. If you've ever seen clothing racks in stores, many of them have round tubes or rectangular or square tubes that are chromed. This is one of those tubes. And I got two of them plus two round tubes for nothing. They cost me not a dime. And they came with this particular bolt already attached. There was one on the other end. I took that out so I could take it with me to the hardware store so I could get the right bolt. because this is too short. But this is going to allow me to just bolt the weight in place. Now, I thought about worrying about the bolt turning, but frankly, I don't care if the bolt ever turns. I'm never using this in combat. But even if you were to, it would survive long enough in one combat for you to then tighten it up after the combat's over. So that's not much of an issue. I'm going to just be bolting it in there and holding it in place because this is just a showpiece. This is not actually going to be used. And I'm going to I'll use the washers and the 2 washers that came with it, along with this bolt, to go right through here. And the fact that it'll be a little, it'll turn on the shaft, I don't care. Now, on the other end of the shaft is also one of those same fittings for putting in a bolt, but I don't want that. So I'm going to be lopping off the last inch of this so that I get that fixture the hell out of there. I don't want it there anymore. And I'll just toss that. And currently this is 47 inches long, so it's going to be about 46 inches long when I'm finished. And what I'm going to put in the other end, rather than a crescent blade, is going to be a spearhead. And I'm going to make the spearhead out of this piece of bar stock, which is 3/16 thick, 3 inches wide, and 36 inches long, plain steel. Now, I don't have any way to harden this, so again, this will still function as a thrusting device, but it's not going to be as keenly sharp as maybe it could be if it were hardened. I'm probably going to, my current design is to have a blade probably 12 inches long. I'm going to play with some design ideas here, and I will go, once I find the length I want, I'll make a mark and I'll go to the center, and then I will draw a line and cut off the wedges to make a 12-inch long head. Now, once I get that, I'm going to come in 1/2 inch on both sides. And that is going to be, hopefully, the width of the grind when I'm done. It'll be about a 1/2 inch grind all the way up. That's what I'm going to try for, at least. It's not going to be uber perfect. I am not a skilled craftsman, and I don't have a like 3-inch wide belt sanding rig designed for knife making. That would be awesome. I do not have the money to buy something like that at this point in my life. It would be cool though, because that would make my life a whole lot easier if I could grind flat, do flat grinding to make flat profiles. That would be great. Wow, this is really dirty. Look at that. What a shock. And then I'm going to, after I come in 1/2 inch, I'm going to mark that, and then I'm going to come in probably 9 inches. Yeah, probably 9 inches. And taper from the 1/2 inch point to 1 inch. So that there'll be a section in here which will be 1 inch. And then when I'm completely done with prefabricating this, I am then going to take the end that doesn't have this screw fixture in it, probably this end right here, and I'm going to drill a hole at just past 9 inches, and then that will be my expansion joint. And then I'm going to cut a slot and put the blade in the slot, and I'll have 2 holes here, which will be through bolts to both pinch it in place and pin it in place, and there'll be 2 holes accompanying in here. So the entire thing is going to end up being, when I'm finished, the right angle will be about here. Maybe not a right angle, maybe I'll go a slight angle just for aesthetics. But the step will be here, and so the blade will be 12 inches longer than that. So you're looking at 47 plus 12, 59 inches when I'm done, which is a pretty good size. And that will mean the person who would theoretically be using this would have the option of using this as a weight to swing and hit someone with. Very good against anti-armor, hard armor. But they would also have a stabbing implement on this end, which is useful for getting through light armor, unarmored opponents, or maybe getting between the links, the chinks in someone's armor they are wearing. So it's going to end up being a Battlestaff. Again, the term I've been using for years now. If you check my DeviantArt and check my sketches, there are numerous Battlestaves on my channel, on that page. So that's the job I want to do right now. So the first step I got to do is remove this and then cut off the end of this tube, and then polish up the cut on the end. I'm not concerned about the cut on the inside in the least. It is not going to become a problem. Then I need to do some layout on this to drill the holes. Actually, I'll probably cut this next. and then worry about this, because this, in case I end up not changing my mind, I don't want to have the holes here first. So I'll figure this out. Probably 1 foot and 9 inches. That's probably the proportions I'm going to do. And then when I get this laid out, I will show you what it looks like before I get to the cutting. And I am definitely going to be putting on a brand new cutting blade on my angle grinder, so I want this as the cleanest cuts I can get. Alrighty, so that's what our task is today. Gonna hopefully get completed in 1 day, which will be a new weapon and I think my first official constructed battle stave. I've drawn many of them, but I don't think I've actually made one yet. I made a double machete, but that's not quite the same. So, on to cutting! So here is the layout. The tube has been cut and deburred, so that's all set. So this is going to be the waist sections here. I'm going to cut the whole thing off there first. Then I will make 2 plunge cuts, zip, zip. Those will be the easiest ones. And then I will cut to them from both ends. This is going to end up being the section inside the tube. And remember, the tube's going to be 1 inch in wide. It'll come to about there. Or there, maybe, yeah, I'll see how I like it. That's up in the air. I like this shape. And after I finished drawing it, I'm like, that looks like a Star Wars Imperial vessel, doesn't it? Yeah, they love that thrusting thing. We're not going to read anything into that. I'm making a spear. I think they were trying to compensate for something. And this kind of comes at a point right, I don't know, can you see that? Yeah, sorry that the lighting in here is not great. But I'll be cutting on the plus side of this, so I'm going to cut on this side and this side, and then I will tweak it in with my angle grinder or my belt sander or something until I get the exact shape I want. But it's going to be probably pretty close to this, because I've gotten pretty good at using my angle grinder to cut a nice straight edge. Not perfect. I'm not perfect, but I'm getting better at it. Alrighty, so now I'm going to change the blade on my angle grinder, which needs to be done. Move this way in. I only need 1 clamp really, and then make the plunge cut, because I don't want it right now, because out here it's I don't want that much vibration when I'm using my angle grinder. I like to have it far more stable when I'm working on something. So first thing to do is going to be cut it off. That'll be the first thing I should probably do, is just whack it right off there, and that way I'm dealing with a smaller piece of steel and it will be less cumbersome. Yes, do that, James. Make your life easier. Don't make it harder because you didn't plan it. Yeah. Best laid plans of mice and men. I had to move the marks. I realized after I made them that they were not exactly where I wanted them, so I moved them. And I've made my first 2 plunge cuts, nice and clean, with a new blade. So now they're going to be the longer cuts, starting here and again on the waist side and going all the way to the end to get these 2 pieces out of here. And that's going to be the section that goes inside the shaft when I am finished. So far, so good. Taking my time. Sometimes layout lines don't always end up where you want, so you have to double check. The old saying, measure twice, cut once. Alrighty, so the cutting and the shaping and deburring of this end is complete. I've cut the line. Ironically, I got closer on the side that I couldn't see the marker with than on the side I could, but I then cleaned it up to the line and deburred everything on all the sides, so they're all set. And succeeded in smacking myself in the face repeatedly with sparks. Yay! When I'm done with one of these projects, the amount of sparks in my beard and the crap in my beard is quite impressive. I've taken a shower after a long day down here, and there's just this slurry of black stuff at the bottom of the shower from all the chips that wash off my body. It's really quite amazing. Alrighty, so now I need to turn it around and make the 2 main cuts. Though I have to check the time because I want to make sure I get lunch in at a reasonable time today. Sometimes I get involved in these things and I forget the passage of time. And as a diabetic, I really can't do that. Okay, I have the spearhead now cut and shaped. I've just finished doing the shaping up to the line on this side. I already did that side. And I'm using this large bolt that fits into these holes, which I have here for clamping purposes, as a dog. So that as I'm pushing this way, the clamp's holding it there, and then the bolt is keeping it from rotating. So that means I can put a fair amount of force on this. Yeah, a fair amount of energy, like pretty much all my strength on that, and that's not really going anywhere. So it gives me a nice firm work surface. And this is just a simple bolt that is exactly the same size as the hole. So I think it's a 1/2 inch, could be 5/8, I don't remember, but yeah, it's a big hole. So now that I have that done, now I need to lay down the lines I want, which is, in theory, from that point right there out to here, that would be the bevel on that side, and then do the same on that side. And I don't know if I have the skill to pull that off. I really don't. I have never done a proper blade grind before. It's never been something I've ever had to do. I've never made a real knife. I mean, yeah, it's a pointy thing at the moment, but it's a pointy thing that really needs edges to make it more efficient. At the moment it would stab, but it wouldn't do a great job of doing anything else. So I'm going to lay that down, and I'm going to try it, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'll do the best I can. This is only 3/16 of an inch, so that's going to be a fairly shallow angle to come in here if I want two sides to make, you know, come into 3/32 on each side. That's not much. That's a very shallow grind, and I don't know if I'm up to that. But we'll see. And if I don't get that far, I don't get that far. I'm not gonna kill myself on this. I'm not gonna make myself so nervous I can't do it right. So I am gonna have to move this out a little, I think, so I can get in there with a file. I'm gonna try a file and see if I can get some control, because using my angle grinder will be much faster, but it doesn't give me the control I would have with a hand file. So we're going to try that and see what happens. I decided I was not going to use the fan file. I tried it, and it does give me a hell of a lot of control, but even using my angle grinder, it took me close to 20 minutes to get that side roughly done. It's not fine-tuned yet, and it's about halfway through the blade. It's not a perfect grind. I decided not to put my layout lines down because I knew I would get frustrated. If I put them down and I didn't meet them, I'd be like, you failed. I didn't fail. I put a shallow angle. I just picked an angle by hand, and then I went with it. And it doesn't look too bad. So now I need to do the same thing on this side. And then when I'm done with that side, hopefully get it to the point where there is a functioning center line here, or close to a center line. I will then flip the blade over and do the spearhead over and do the other side. This is why professional knife makers have really expensive 60 or 90 inch belt grinders. This is the reason, because you can take a hell of a lot of material off with one of those while using two hands and having a lot of control, as opposed to what I'm doing, which is bolting this or clamping this to my bench and trying to use an angle grinder. It's not the same. You don't get as much control as you would with two hands and a stationary grinder. But I'm doing my best. So now it's time to reconfigure my clamping setup so that I can start working on the other side. So there we have it. I almost got it perfect. I think I have to tweak the left side just a little, just a smidge more. But I'm very close to being where I want to be. So I think I need to bring this line in about another millimeter to get the visual look I want. And then I'll have it pretty darn even. And then it's flipping it over and doing this whole side again. Now I find it intriguing that it was easier for me to do this side. That I was able to get a rhythm down that I really couldn't get on the other side. I don't know why. Because maybe it was the way I was holding it, because the angle grinder is asymmetric. It's not like the blade is not dead center in the center of the machine. So I don't think they make angle grinders like that, but I was able to get a rhythm going that made this side easier. I need to look into that, figure out why that is. But I need to bring that in a little bit more, and then flip it over and do this side. I had a little bit of burning down here, but it's hard because to get everything, that center line the way I want it without getting this too hot. You know what I mean? I don't want to be pouring water over my floor because I'm working with electrical things, and I don't want to make my shop more dangerous than it already is, because I may not be setting myself on fire anymore, but there's still sparks flying everywhere, and there's still things, and I don't want to be slipping on crap. So yeah. Alright, so bring this side in another millimeter, and then flip it over and do the other side. And then even if once we get done with that part, then we still have to drill the shaft, figure out where the holes are going to be. We're gonna do the shaft first, and then mark where the holes will be in this, because I want to get that done first, and then mark them here. So, yeah, challenging, but it's really starting to come together. At the moment of this moment, this project is really starting to fit the model I had in my head in a very reassuring and comforting way. So here is the blade itself. Not easy to pick up. Give me a sec. There you go. It's not perfect. Not by any stretch of the imagination. But it's pretty darn close to what I imagined. So now it's time to figure out where I want the holes, the distance, probably 6 inches, and then go drill 3 holes in the channel so that I can then mark this. No, I have to cut the channel. I have to drill 3 holes, cut the channel, and then put this in there so I can mark it and drill these 2 holes. So that's the next thing. So time to get my V-block out of my drill press, because I definitely don't need that right now. Remember, support your work and clamp your work. That way things don't move on you and you're going to be safer. All 3 through holes are complete. Those 2 will be the clamping holes, and this is going to be the hole that I cut the slot towards and will be my relief expansion spot. And once again, my Blair roto broach came through for me. I can't do this accurately with a drill bit. My drill press can't handle that kind of stress, and I found drill bits move around too much, but this does not. So I just mark both sides and do single holes, and I've got some 1/4-20 bolts, which will be not going through this hole, but going through the other 2. And those were already in my kit, my supplies, so it didn't cost me anything. So now I have to draw a straight line down the center of this and start the cutting process. And I'm probably going to try, I'm going to set it up for both sides, because I'll do the beginning cut straight vertical, and then I'll come up and do one side, nibble it a bit so it's 3/16 of an inch wide, because the cutting wheel on my angle grinder is only a 1/16 of an inch side, so I have to nibble off quite a bit to get that to be wider. It'd be nice if I had a wider one, but I don't really want to be using. I mean, technically I could use something like that. I guess I could try nibbling through that thing. I have to measure it, but that's a lot of. That'd be a lot of work to get there. It's a 1/4 inch. Okay, I don't have to measure it. It's 1/4 inch. That'd be a lot of work to get that to go through there. But we'll see. Maybe I can use that later to open things up. But once I get the slot itself cut and I know it's nice and centered, so I have to draw a line down there all the way with my calipers. I will then brighten it up with some Sharpie, and then we'll start the cutting process. Slot is completed. I just nibbled away with it with the cutting blade. I find that I get a lot more control that way. So the slot's completed, and now I have the blade marked, the spearhead. Now I'm going to drill 2 holes, and then it's assembly, and then I'm finished. Put 2 bolts through to hold this in place, and then just bolt the weight on the end. That's a straight. Just I already got the bolt in place. Just bolt that in place, and I'm done. So hopefully the next thing you'll see will be the finished item. So here she be. This is the completed Battlestaff. chrome shaft, salvage steel impact head. This weighs 2.5 pounds. And this is made out of plain steel. It is not hardened. I don't have any ability to harden. And I would not really sure how hard it would be even if I did have the ability to harden. I would be able to get a better edge on it. It's got an edge. It's not a great edge, but it's got an edge. It's also really darn pointy. So really happy about that. So I'm going to go and show this to my wife and probably terrify her. She finds a lot of these things I make terrifying. I can kind of understand that because they are in fact terrifying. And then I'll get some shots outside and this project's done. My first official constructed Battlestaff, and I'm hoping the first of many to come. I love the idea of a double weapon that has dissimilar ends. And since I have one more piece of this tubing, this square stock, I'll have to come up with what I want to do next. So I've done blunt and pointed. So next one should probably be a slash, maybe a fork. That might be interesting. Slashing on one end and a fork on another. Anyone who sees this and is interested, go to my DeviantArt page, poke around on my sketches, and see if you think any of those I did should become real things. Alright, so thank you folks for being here. I hope you'll be here again, and I hope that you enjoyed your stay.